are on to TVC Breakfast, and we are on to our second break story this morning. So the Nigerian presidency says it is delighted with the successes recorded so far in the war on corruption, especially the introduction of the whistleblowing policy.
Now, it believes that Nigerians exposing locations of looted funds deserve all the encouragement and protection promised by government. Government information handlers disclosed this to State House correspondent Maria Olashainde.
The policy was approved at a meeting of the Federal Executive Council chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari. The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, who announced the new policy to State House correspondents at the time, described it as a stopgap initiative until the National Assembly formally passes a law on whistleblowing. Not many Nigerians believed that the policy would stand the test of time, but the president's media handlers are impressed by the public's ready acceptance of the policy and assure them of government's protection for whistleblowers.
We will not renege on our promise, and whatever is payable to any whistleblower, we always redeem our pledge.
There has not been one incident of the identity of a whistleblower being blown, which means that we have a system in place that has integrity, because everyone should be aware of the dangers of disclosure, of unveiling the identity of a whistleblower.
Garba Shehu explains the idea behind the policy and what government has set out to achieve.
The idea is to draw out people. Let them be conscious of the fact that they have a responsibility to the country, to themselves also. Because if the nation, if the whole country is safe, everyone is the better for it.
On a spot, Lai Mohammed is impressed that some whistleblowers are stepping forward, not because of the cash reward, but to fulfill their patriotic obligations to the nation.
Make adequate account of all loads recovered. The president has given a directive that the various agencies must give a report of how much is with who and how is retrieved.
Recently, the whistleblowing policy has uncovered lots of illegally acquired funds hidden across the country, the latest being the Ikoyi Gate controversy. A presidential investigative panel was set up by the president under the chairmanship of Professor Yemi Oshibajo to probe the suspended DG of NIA, Ayo Oke. Maria Olashainde, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, that's our next story, the whistleblower policy. Of course, latest reports say that the government has some 2,500 leads following whistleblower policy, of course.
That's what the government says.
Yes, that's what government is saying. Well, our guest right here in the studio is Leboro Soshoma. He's a lawyer. Thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Always my pleasure.
Well, government is, giving itself a pat on the back, saying the war on corruption is succeeding as a result of the whistleblower policy. Are you on the same page with government on that one?
Yes, to some extent.
Okay.
Because that had been, we had advocated, for something that would give confidence to people who would want to volunteer information to government, and so. In that aspect, you can say, the war is succeeding. People have volunteer information willingly in, the hope of protection, and then also for something, in return for that information. So the first question for me, the next question for me would be, there's been this controversy by some persons whether government, the Federal Executive Council have the legal powers to make such regulations, to answer that question, to clear doubt in the mind of some persons who believe, no, it shouldn't have been Federal Executive Council. It's a regulation, and they have the powers to make such regulations, to say, look, any information you volunteer, we're ready to give you a percentage, and then in return protect you also. And then secondly, we should also be aware that this is not the first time. We've always had this, it's like the police declaring, somebody wanted and placing a ransom
on the person.
On the person, saying, look, it's like, look, anybody that, can give us a lead to how to get this person, we're ready to pay, so and so. Or saying, okay, so and so person stole so and so much, and if you give us a lead, you go with 5%.
I'll buy into your argument, except for the fact that sometimes some of these things needs to be written down in black and white, and they must be codified.
Yeah, I will get there. I'm getting there. And if you also listen, the Minister for Finance said, look, this is a stopgap approach. Because if you wait for the National Assembly, if you wait until the National Assembly passes this thing into law, then they might not be able to, achieve the mileage that they have achieved now. But then you need to go the whole hog. You can't say, okay, because you have achieved this much, so you just rest on your horse. That's why I said that we had, we've always had a similar, thing, but it's just that you say you place a ransom on somebody's head. But then also, how did we now get to a situation where the Nigerian police will now have to beg people to say, look, police is your friend, volunteer information?
Very good question. I hope you can answer that.
Exactly. Lack of confidence, lack of confidence in the system. And so the moment people don't have confidence and the people, that trust is breached, then you're going to have a problem. And so that's why, apart from this stopgap approach, there's need for us now to ensure that we pressurize the National Assembly to pass this into law. Let's have a law. So you know what your right as a whistleblower, you know what your rights are. And then also, I was very happy picking the papers this morning, and then you hear that EFCC arrested and charged 2 persons for giving false information. Because some people also would want to use that to blackmail, genuine businessmen. Yeah. And also, so in the event that happens, you also would know what your rights and privileges are. So all of these things we need. So,
but does it look to you or seem to you that the National Assembly is really on the same page with the executive? There seems to be nothing coming from that end, that they're actually ready to tackle this, corruption.
Whose end now?
From the end of the National Assembly.
I don't think
in
so.
In terms of hastening or fast-tracking this call for a law backing the whistleblower policy.
There is a law, there is a bill before the National Assembly.
Yes, but
proposed by a senator who even belongs to an opposition. How much transparent would do you want them to be?
Okay, so let's take it to Liberals then.
Yeah, also on a lighter note, last week the Ajeku Yanoje Krona Senator Dino Melaye launched a book on how to tackle corruption in Nigeria. I expect, I've not read the book, but I expect whistleblowing to be one of such solutions he prefers. And then, that's why I cannot blame Buhari enough on the relationship, that is existing between the National Assembly and the Senate. Because at the beginning, at the inception of this administration, we had said that, look, if you want to drive a new process, you want to drive a change process, we've known Nigeria and the National Assembly the way it has been. There's need for you to lobby for who emerge as leaders in the National Assembly. Let them share the same ideology with you. Because your bills are going to pass through this, chambers. And so it's not enough to say, I don't care. Whoever emerge, I would work with. Because if they don't share the same ideology with you, you can have bills, but how long will those bills go? There are some bills that the moment they get to second reading, they're stuck. There are some that, as soon as the bills are introduced, before you know it's at the committee stage, So that's why there are so many bills before the National Assembly.
How encouraging is it for you?
But I expect
hold on, Liberals. Sorry, let me butt in here very quickly. Kemi Adeosun, in appraising or reappraising the whistleblower policy, said that Nigerians are actually coming out, and many of them are not even interested in this reward that we're talking about. What does it say to you? Is it that Nigerians are really seriously buying into this anti-corruption war?
Nigerians, the average Nigerian would want to buy into anything that will enable government recover looted funds, that are meant for the ordinary Nigerian. And so, and another thing you should understand is the fact that what actually, what were the credentials of President Muhammadu Buhari? What, did people buy into? People bought into the credentials of his coming to fight corruption. And they know that corruption has been a big problem in this country. And so, coming on board, there are people who ordinarily would want to partner. They are genuine businessmen. They know what it takes to make money. And then you see people who you can't really identify their means of livelihood.
Do you also underscore
some
the
of these
ones
persons
that are maybe overzealousness of some, like the Senator Goje's house that was raided, according to the police. There was a whistleblower, and the Koi Gate is also not yet resolved, also credited to a whistleblower.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That to start from the last question, I expect that by now the executive should have, a committee and to liaise with the National Assembly on this Whistleblower Act to ensure that it is passed timeously. It's, gone are the days when you just believe that everything should be handled by your liaison officer, that's the President's advisor on National Assembly matters. No. There are some issues that would need special attention. You appoint people to sit down and work out a harmonious bill. So at the end of the day, that bill will meet the demands of both the executive and the legislature. And then secondly, also, to your question, there are people who genuinely, would want to volunteer information.
Yes.
They will want protection. They will also want to ensure that such funds are judiciously applied. And also, if possible, such people are brought to book. The moment you recover such funds and they see that such funds is being applied and their identity is protected, that also will encourage people. You remember in Lagos State, before, there was a time in Lagos State where people ordinarily would not want to volunteer to pay tax. But the moment they saw what government was doing with, such taxes, people started volunteering.
Liberals, we're wrapping up this segment now, but there's a part of this whistleblowing arrangement that gets me a bit unsettled. Some government officials determines if an information passed by a whistleblower is worthy of investigation. Some government officials determines. What if a whistle is blown on a crony of a government official? Can that be quashed?
The essence, that's why at the end of the day, we need to take it away from the realms of, just a mere regulation to the realm of, an act. And so that if you are volunteering information, if at the end of the day, somebody feels, look, this information is a cheap blackmail, and you so believe that, look, the information you gave was true to the best of your knowledge, in most cases, they say depose on affidavit of fact to that effect, you can hold out your own, even if you are dragged before a court of competent jurisdiction. But then in the second phase also it now takes, what the question now borders on conscience. Yes, those applying the law. And that's why, for me, I feel we cannot just leave the EFCC alone to do this anti-corruption fight. You can't, leave, because it should be a holistic approach. You should nationalize the fight against corruption.
And of course, speaking
and that
about
brings
this,
you to reforming the police also.
Okay.
Let them be part of this fight.
Yes.
And your witness protection program also. EFCC can handle all of this. And so if the EFCC feels, oh, this is a crony to the government, and so we can't investigate him, then there are some other agencies you can volunteer information. And then also, talking about the reformation, then we'll now begin to find a way of insulating these security agencies from the apron string of the executive or the presidency, so that they will be independent. Look at the FBI and
the Comey issue.
Yes, exactly. And I was listening to an analyst on CNN, and he said, look, this can only happen in Africa. You know, and you see all of
Alas, it's not about Africa right
exactly.
now.
And you see the FBI saying, look, they are not answerable to the president in as far as investigation of this nature are concerned. But here, you find out that, you know, such chief executive want to look at the body language of whoever is in power. And, you know, so we need to gradually
unfortunately,
move away
we
from
don't
that.
have enough time, but whistleblower policy should be just one and not the main thing in tackling corruption.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree completely. I agree.
All right, Liberal Oshoma, thank you so much for your time and your contribution on the show.
Always my pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll take a short break and come back to discuss more. Stay with us.